Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, BERNINA Embroidery Software 8, All About Color. You can submit questions by typing them into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send your questions at any time during the presentation. Our presenter is Debbie Lashbrook. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you, Julie, and welcome everyone. As Julie said, this is all about color, and there's a lot of information about color. You're going to learn about the ins and outs of all things Software 8 has to do with color. When we talk about color, keep in mind that there are differences in computer monitors and video cards. Colors displayed can be used only as a guide when you're selecting colors for your design. So some computers may not give you the same colors as others, and just be aware of that. I'm going to talk about the different areas of color in the software, first of all, and go through a PowerPoint. And there are 3 handouts that I will be touching upon. These handouts can be downloaded, and to download them, if you click on the control panel, this arrow that's on with the background of orange will open up the control panel, and you will have 3 PDF files that you can download and have as we go through the webinar. Now, there is a lot of information covered, but everything that I'm going to say is going to be included in the handout. And remember, you can always review the webinar after it's posted on the website. Our first topic is, where do you find all the color in the software? Well, one of the obvious places is in color film. Color film is best docked whenever you're working with files, and you can dock it by clicking on the auto hide icon that's right next to the X, and that will keep your color film dialog or Docker box open. We use color film a lot, and that's why it's best to keep it open. You can right-click on a color chip and open up a context menu that gives you lots of options. So it's a quick and easy way to do a lot of different things. Another thing that we use color film for is changing the sequence of colors. So I can click on a part of a design and move it up or down in the sequence. And then you can also use color film for combining colors. I do want to mention there are YouTube videos that have been posted about Software 8, and there is a series on color film, so you can review those YouTube videos if you need more information about color film. Another place we find color in the software is our color palette, and this is at the bottom of the screen. It will show you the number of default colors in an open design or even in a blank design, and there are 56 default colors. When you rest your cursor on the color palette, the word BERNINA will show, and that is because the default color palette in the software is BERNINA. If you have a design open, any colors that are used in the design have a blue square in the upper right-hand corner. There's also My Thread Stalker, which is another area of color, and this is in the lower right corner of your screen, and it is opened with a left click. If you right-click on this same icon, you have a Thread Colors dialog box that will open. And the dialog box has many of the same functions that you will find in My Thread Stalker. Another place you find color in the software is the design menu and clicking on background. And here is where you can change the color in a design. One other place that you may or may not have experimented with before is color styles in Corel. So the last handout that we'll be covering is on the Corel color styles. I also want to mention formats of designs. Your on-screen colors may appear rather strange at some times, and that's because some file formats don't carry color information. The bell on the right that you see does not have color information. This is actually a regular EXP file, not a BERNINA EXP file. The BERNINA EXP file carries 3 different types of files. It has a bitmap, which is the picture. It has the EXP, which is the design. And it also has an INF file, which carries the color information. So a format has to have color information, or when you open it in the software, it's going to look weird. We also have a difference in opening a design and inserting a design. When we open a design, only the color palette that is used in the design will show in your, only the colors in the color palette will show, that is. And here is the color palette of an open design. Now, when you insert a design, you have default colors that will remain. All colors used in the design will have that blue square in the upper right-hand corners. Someone noticed in this morning's webinar that this same design has a difference in opening and inserting. And I did find out the answer. When you open a design, it's going to maintain color order numbers. So even when a same color is used, like you see color 11, that's actually the same color as color number 26. But you have 25 color changes in this design. And so all the color changes in the design are counted when you open a design. When you insert a design, you'll see that there's only one color purple. And those 2 colors are combined when you insert a design. Now, when we work through the editing handout, we're going to talk about the different ways that we can edit colors. And one of the ways is through the pick color. Pick color has the advantage that you do not have to ungroup a design, nor do you have to use the Alt key in order to select the color. With the color palette, you will have to use an Alt key to select the object first, and then you can change the design in the color palette. Color film is one of the best ways to change all of one color. Again, you use the Alt key when you want to change all of one color. And then My Threads Docker can be used to change a specific color to a specific brand of thread. We'll also cover changing the background color of a design, and this is through the design menu. And you can choose all sorts of different colors to use in your background. And this is important because the design is really going to look different on different types of backgrounds. So it gives you the opportunity to test the color of your fabric with the design. We're also going to be playing with color, and we have 2 ways we can play with colors. One is the cycle use color, and one is the color wheel. When you're done with the design, sometimes it's nice to hide unused colors. And if you want to do this to only display the colors, you will click on the Hide Unused Colors, and that will leave only the colors that are actually used in the design. And it will simplify your color palette when you open the design the next time. You can also remove unused colors, and that's this next icon, and that will take away all the extra colors altogether. Now we have a Docker and we have a dialog box, and they both will do a lot of the same things. You can access the function of reassigning colors here. You can select thread charts in either the Docker or the dialog box. You can match and assign colors in a dialog box or the Docker, and you can sort colors as well. But sometimes My Threads will do something that the dialog box will not. So in terms of My Threads, the advantage of using My Threads is that you can choose more than one brand at a time. So you can see in this chart, I have both Isochord and Corel showing. In the dialog box, you can only choose one thread chart at a time. You can sort by name and chart, or I'm sorry, code and name in this, but chart will only show Orafill. Whereas in the Docker box, you can sort by color, by code, or by the name, or by the chart. So you have more sort options with the MyThreads Docker. When you search for a color name, more than one color can be shown. So if I come up here and type in just the color green, any colors that have the word green in it will show in this after I've done the search. Here, if I search for the color green, the first color that has green in the name will show. So you'll see this in the handout when we work through the handout. Now the dialog box does things that the Docker box will not. For example, you have the option to print. So you can print a color chart in the dialog box. You can also come up here and change the name of a thread color to where it is used in a design. And sometimes that's handy, especially if you have lots of colors. If you know where that color is going to be stitched, it can give you a better idea of what color of thread to use. That cannot be done in the MyThreads Docker. And if I only want to match color number 1 to, say, a Madeira thread, I can do that in this dialog box. I cannot do that in MyThreads Docker. So both of these will influence the type of, or will give you differences in what you can do with color. So there is a handout called Color Editing that will cover some of these things. Let's go on to thread management next. Now, thread charts are never static. Colors change, they can be deleted from a line, there are new colors added to a line. And so through thread management, you have additional ways to work with colors. Here you can create and modify thread charts. You can add new colors to a thread brand. And there are different ways to manage the thread. This dialog box, you can manage thread charts, but you can also manage your thread charts through the MyThreads Docker. So you'll learn how to do that. And you would just click on the word manage. So here are some things that you can manage. I can change a name of a color to a description. That's only in the dialog box. I can print a chart. That's only in the dialog box. I can modify a chart, such as adding or changing colors. That can be done either in the Docker or the dialog box. And I can create a personal thread chart. Again, that can be done either in the Docker or the dialog box. Excuse me. You can also create a backup file. And you do this by going to your program files and finding BERNINA. This is on the handout, so don't try to stress and copy down all this information. It is on the handout and shows you how to back up a file. So there is a handout on thread management that we will be going through that will cover each of these topics. Then our last handout is on Corel. Now, we've already covered in previous webinars that the different things that Corel can do in terms of color. If you have an object you've drawn, you can left click and it will fill with a color. If you right click, it influences the outline color. And you can also combine colors when you're working with Corel. But I want to show you something a little bit different with Corel this time, and this is called Color Styles. We'll activate the Color Styles Docker by going to Window, Dockers, and Color Styles. So here's the path to find Color Styles. And this is what the Docker looks like. So color styles can be combined into groups, and those groups are called harmonies. And they're based on the hue or the color of that you're using. And you can use the color harmonies to create some different color options in your artwork. This is not done to designs, it's done to artwork. And where this can be useful is if you want to play with colors a little bit in your artwork. Now, it will only work with vector objects and not bitmaps. So we're going to bring a bitmap in, convert it to a vector, and then play with color styles. This shows the full Docker after something has been selected in color styles. How we can use this is we can edit the color and check different colors and play with the colors before we determine or before we convert it to an embroidery design. So you will have a handout on color styles. So let's go ahead and get started with the handout, and I'll open up the software. And I have already opened the design that's used in your first handout on editing colors. Now, one of the ways we can edit colors is with the pick color, and that is at the top, the far left, lower left. And when you click on the pick color, your mouse turns into an eyedropper. And I'm going to pick the color that I want to change these tulips to. So I'm going to click on this, and now my paint bucket icon or mouse can be used to change the color of the tulips or the petals that are in the back. One thing to remember when you do this, you want to always check your color film, because in between these two petals, there is a running or a travel stitch that connects these two. And if I don't change the color of that, I'm going to have a lot of stops and starts. So I'm going to press escape. I'll hold down the Alt key and select that travel stitch, and then click on the color chip 3, and it now is combined, and there will not be a color stop in between those two petals. Another thing that we can do is change an object to a new color that's in the color palette. So if I hold down the Alt and the Control key, I can click on these coral petals, and I'm going to change them to color number 40. Didn't quite get that one, so let me hold down the Alt key. Zooming in really helps there, so you can select the right one. Now I need to change this color back. So I'll hold down the Alt key, and this is the pale color. Now I've got it. Another thing we might want to do is change all of one color to a different color. And that is where your color film will help. Again, you'll need to use the Alt key because you have a grouped design. So I'm going to deselect, hold down the Alt key, and select this first color. And I'm going to change it to color number 30. Next, let's hold down the Alt key and change this color. And I'll change that to color number 10. So you've got several ways to add or change the color. Now let's say that there was not a color chip in this entire palette that you really wanted to use, and you wanted to add one more color. There is a plus sign down in your palette that's called Add Palette Color. And if you click on that, you will now have number 57. Now, if you have things selected, as I did, you can see that that's going to automatically change that color. So I'm going to click Undo, deselect, and then choose color number 57. We'll open the My Threads Docker by left-clicking on the My Threads icon, and that opens up all sorts of colors. You can use the slider that's on the right, and I want to pick a green. So I'm going to come down here to my greens, and I'll just double-click on this color, and you can see that color number 57 changed to the color I selected. Now, the fun thing about doing this is that if you want to change a specific color to the new color, I'm going to hold down the Alt key. Let me undo that first. I'll hold down the Alt key and select the color that I want to change. And then I can preview a color by changing the color to color 57. It changes color 57. It also changes the design. Well, if I do something that I don't like, I can choose another color and just double click on that. So I can keep clicking on different colors and previewing it until I find the one that I want to end up with. Now, the next topic is going to be assigning colors. And let's say I want to search for a color. I can search in the My Thread Stalker, and I know I want to use color 0520. And you can see that the Docker scrolls to find that particular color. And all I have to do is select the color in color film, and let's select this one. And if I double click on that color, it's going to change the color in the design. And this will be specifically an Isochord color because that's my default thread chart. But let's say I don't want to use just Isochord. I might want to add a different kind of thread. I can do that also through My Threads by clicking on the My Threads chart. And as I mentioned, Isochord is the default thread brand. So if I want to have a second brand, maybe I have a lot of Aurafill colors, I can select that and send it over to my Threads chart. When I go OK, and then I'm going to delete this color to bring back my entire chart. If I click on Match and Assign All, when I rest my cursor down on my color palette, I have either Isochord or Aurafill colors to choose from. So if you have two different brands of thread charts that you like to use, you can find the closest match. Now, your chosen thread brands are going to remain from design to design. So if I open up a new design, it's also going to have those same thread charts. Another thing that we can do in the My Thread Stalker is show thread details. And I can click on this second icon, and I have color chips, I have color codes, I have names of colors, and I also have both Isochord and Aurafill. So let's say I was looking for colors of turquoise to use. By beginning to type in the name, I get all the color names that have turquoise in them. So this is an advantage of using the My Thread Stalker because you can find several different colors to choose from. Another thing I can do in the My Thread Stalker is sort. And if I click on code, it's going to sort by code. And if I click twice, it's going to be in descending order. I can click on the name, and that will be alphabetically by either A to Z or Z to A order. And I can also sort by chart. Now, you can do these same things in the My Thread dialog box, except the My Thread dialog box will only show one chart at a time. So you can't really sort by chart because there's only one selected. You can see that there's a match and assign all in this dialog box as well. If I want to, I'm going to collapse this first to give me more room on the screen. And if I want to color blend, that's another way to add color. I can, first of all, ungroup the design. I need to ungroup this in order to apply color blend. And I'm going to hold the Control key down to select multiples. And I'm going to select all these green leaves around the design. I'll go to the Edit toolbox and click on Color Blend. And what Color Blend does is allow me to choose two different colors and the way the colors are going to blend. So I'll scroll down here into the greens and choose a couple of different greens. You can choose one for your top layer and one for your bottom layer. And click OK, and then you will have both of those colors in the leaves. One other thing that you might want to do is change the background color of the design. That is done in Design and Background. And here I can click on a design or on a color chip, both inside and outside the hoop, and click OK, and I can preview that design on a specific color of background. Now, another thing we might want to do is just play with the colors that we have and change their position within a design. And when you play with cycle use colors, you want to pay attention to the particular to a particular area, because you have to cycle through the entire colors. So I'm going to click on this, and you can see that the same colors are just repositioned in the design. And sometimes you might like a certain combination better than another. So here's where it's important to remember the color that you focused in on, and that was this color that I chose to watch. I'm back to the beginning. Another way to play with color is the color wheel. And when you open up the color wheel, you have 5 different color schemes to choose from. And I can click on each of those color schemes to test it, to see if I like it. I'm going to go back to Harmonious, and let's play a little bit more with the color. If I click on the circle that has the ring around it, all the colors are going to change. So this is the base color, and it will affect every other color in the design. I can move it out, I can move it around, and when I've got a certain combination that I like, I can stop. If I want to change individual colors, I can do the individual colors as well. And I can also change the brightness of either one color or all the colors. Now notice nothing has happened to the design, and it will not until I click OK. So the color wheel gives you a chance to play with all the different colors that you might want to play with. One thing though, once you get the colors changed, if I come back up here to my color palette and rest my cursor on a color chip, a lot of times it will not tell me the colors. What I have to do is click on Match All, and now I will have color names for every color that is used in the design. One of the last steps that you'll want to do is come over to Color Film after selecting all of the design and click on Sequence by Color. And the software will give you a suggested sequence, and you can click OK. When you do the sequence by color, the software will determine if certain colors need to stitch after other colors. And that's the safest way to resequence your colors. Now the second handout is on thread management. And so with this one, we're going to look at a design that has been opened. And we'll primarily use the My Threads dialog box with this handout, so you can get a flavor for how it works as well. First of all, notice that the color palette only has 4 colors. And if I want to add a color, I can click on the plus sign to add a color, or I can also add a color, and I clicked undo to get rid of that color I added. But I can also add a color by right-clicking on the My Threads and coming up in the Threads in Design and clicking on the up arrow and then applying, and I get another color added. Notice that it is the Bernina default color palette. I can also select my thread brand here. So if I want to use Isochord, I'll select Isochord. Again, with the dialog box, you only can select one type of thread chart at a time. So if I want to match this color, I can do different things. I can scroll down through all the colors and just randomly pick a color, and I can choose that color and double click on it and the color will change. But I could also search for a color. So with this selected, I'm going to choose 1903. And when I double click on it, it changes the color to that particular color. Now let's say I want to change this first color. And this time I know the color name, but I don't know the number. I'm going to put a dot by name, highlight the 1903, and begin typing in the word strawberries. Here's the color I want to change it to. I double click and it is changed to that color. Notice that when you do this, the software automatically chooses the next color. So if you have a whole series of colors to change, this makes it an easy way to change all the colors in a design where you're looking for specific colors that you want to use. Now, one of the things that I can do here is change the description. And you can see that this design was set up originally so that everything was described rather than having the color name. So if I want to edit this one, I can select the strawberries and cream and click on edit and highlight this and put petals, which is the place that this is going to stitch, and then go OK, and that will change the name to a description instead of the color name. This is also going to be shown if you print a template. If I want to choose a color in Madeira threads that matches this color, all I have to do is select my Madeira thread chart and click on match and click on assign. And it will assign any of the colors that I have selected. So you can do one thread color, you can do multiple thread colors, or you can match and assign all. Now, the one or two colors that are matched to a particular thread brand, the dialog box is the easiest way to do this. I can also print a thread chart in this dialog box, and I cannot do that in my Threads Docker. So when I click on print, it's going to print the chart that I have selected in the dialog box. This is a great way to keep an inventory of your threads, and you can print this out and then check the ones that you have, and then take that to the store so you can fill in the blanks. It's also a great way to prepare for creating your own thread chart. Now, in thread management, I can open up my Threads Docker and I can open up the dialog box, and I can manage my thread charts either in the dialog box, or I can click on it's not, I've got to close this in order to show you. I can click on the first icon and click on Manage. And it will open up this very same chart that is in the dialog box. I want to show you in this dialog box how you can create and modify your charts. So I'm going to click on Create and Modify. This is the exact same chart that I pulled up in my thread Stalker. And I can rename a chart by having the chart here and clicking on Rename. I can delete a thread chart by having the chart that I want to get rid of and pressing Delete. Usually we don't want to do that unless we know we're never ever going to use a thread brand, then you might want to delete it. But I can also modify a thread chart. So that's what we're going to choose next. I'm going to choose the Mettler chart. And let's say I've got a new thread color that isn't in this chart. I'm going to click on Add and then click on Mix. Go to More Colors and click on Custom. And then I'm going to click on an area and that will select that particular color. It gives me the RGB values. If I have the RGB values of the thread, that's the best way to match a thread. But you can also lay a strand of thread over your computer screen and just pick different areas and find the color that's the closest match. Now let's say we have an RGB value. I'm going to enter those RGB values in the box. And as I enter them, it's going to scroll to a specific color in the color mixer. When I get the values, I click OK, and the color is now shown in the Add Thread chart. I'll look at the color code on the spool of thread that I purchased and enter that. I'll get the name of the color and add that and click OK. Now that is added to my color. Notice that the Mettler 40 is not added, so you do have an opportunity to add that in this chart, but I'm going to delete it pretty soon, so I didn't add the thread brand. So that is a way to add a thread. Now, if I want to delete a thread, say a thread color isn't available, and this one is a fictitious one, so I'm going to delete that. I click on it and I click on Remove. Don't click on Delete because that deletes the whole chart. I'm removing only one thread. It asks me to confirm that. I click on Yes, and now the chart, or that particular pumpkin thread, is no longer there. One other thing that you might want to do when you manage your thread charts is to create your own thread chart. So this is done in that same Manage Thread Charts. I can click on Create, and I have a dialog box where I can type in the name of the chart and click OK. That chart now appears in your thread chart with no colors. And here is where the printed chart can help you. If you take that printed chart, you've inventoried your threads, you've got it in front of you, and now you're going to copy colors. So I'm going to go to Copy, and I will choose the first chart that I want to copy. I'm going to choose Isochord. And in the event that you have all Isochord colors, I can select that first color, scroll to the bottom, hold the Shift key down, and select the last one, and click OK. And all the Isochord threads are added to my chart. Now, if you've got a lot of Isochord threads, it may be advantageous for you to do it this way. And then if there's some that you don't have, you can just select them and click on Remove. If I hold the Control key down, I can select multiples to remove. After I do one chart, I want to copy another chart. So let's copy from, let's go to Floriani. Now, I may not have as many Floriani threads, and I need to just kind of scroll through the threads and pick the colors that I have. Again, if you've done an inventory, this is a really quick way to add your threads. When I go OK, those are now added to my thread chart. Then I can copy again. And you just repeat this for any kinds of threads that you have. If I have just a little range of colors, I can select one, hold down the Shift key, select the other, and add those. And those will be added to my thread chart. Once I get my thread charts all added, I can click on the name, or I can click on the chart, or I can click on the code and organize the chart the way I want to. When I close out of that, my personal chart is indicated here, and I have to click OK. And now look what happens to my threads. When I click on that, my personal chart is now over on the right-hand side. I'm going to find Isochord and get it sent back over here and click OK, because I want to show you how to delete a thread chart. So I'll go back in here and click on Create and Modify. I want to find my personal thread chart because it is also a fictitious chart, and I can click on Delete. A confirmation box opens up and you can click yes, and now the chart is deleted. Part of the handout is how to make your own personal thread chart into a template. I'm not going to cover those steps here because I want to allow time for questions, and we're going to move on next to Corel. Now, I found in working with color styles that it was easiest to work in Corel. I had fewer challenges, I'll say, working in Corel versus working in Artwork Canvas. So if you open up your Corel Draw SE, when you downloaded the update, you've got a shortcut icon placed on your desktop for Corel Draw. It opens up to this welcome screen, and you'll need to select the new icon and just click OK. Go to File, Import, and navigate to your Bernina pictures and find AEast 011. Click on Import and press Enter. Now this is a bitmap image, and we need to convert this to a vector image. So I'm going to click on Trace Bitmap and select Quick Trace. And Corel is changing that bitmap into a vector image. I'll go to my Object Manager, and I'm going to select the bitmap and delete the bitmap, and that will leave only the vector. Then I need to ungroup this, so I'm going to select it, right-click, and ungroup all objects. This breaks this into separate curves. I'm going to deselect, and then I will select the curve, the very last curve, and press Delete. Now, when you change a bitmap into a vector, there's always a white background around it. And what we just deleted is that white background. We don't want that in our final vector image. Next, go to Window and Dockers and find Color Styles. We're going to select this vector, and I'm just going to draw a bounding box around it because I did ungroup it. And I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to drag it to the Harmony box. This gives you a dialog box that asks you some questions. I'm going to leave this at both fill and outline. And I want to group this color styles into only 3 harmonies. And click OK. Now, you don't have to agree with the way that the software grouped these, and I certainly don't want the brown down with these bright colors. So I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to drag it up to the more neutral colors here. So you can edit what this software does. So let's first of all select this pink. And when I select this, that populates the rest of the Docker. And I can click on this circle and I can change the color. And as I bring it around in different areas, it's changing the harmony color chip. It changed the color chip in the folder, and it also changed the vector image. If I choose the red, notice how the ring changes. This is like the color wheel, and I can move this color around and try different colors. And when I release my mouse, I have that new color. I can change the brightness of a color as well, just like you can change it in the color wheel. Now let's say that I want to change all my colors. And to change all the colors, I first have to deselect, and I click in the Harmony editor outside the color wheel to do that. And I want to click and drag all the folders together because I only want one folder. And that way, when I select the folder, all the colors are selected. And I can play with the color wheel and try different color combinations. If I want to just select one color, I click on that one color. So it works very much the same way as your color wheel. I can also make a copy of this, select everything, right click, and select copy here. And I have 2 colors now to play with. So in this way, you can experiment with different colors. And let's say I wanted to just change this. Now notice both are changing, and I only want to change one. If I only want to change one, I have to select one, and I right click, select color styles, and I break link to color styles. So now when I change the color styles, it will only change this one. So I can make some changes again, and it will give me a totally new color combination. I can repeat this multiple times so I can experiment with my artwork before I convert it to embroidery. To get this over in the embroidery side, I'm going to select File, Export. And you'll navigate to where you want the file to be saved. And I'm going to call this Color Styles 4. And you will click on the Save as Type and make sure you have CMX selected and click on Export. Now, when I go back to my software and get a new blank design, I can switch over to Artwork Canvas, and then I can import that artwork into Artwork Canvas and then convert it to embroidery. So I'll select File, Import, and I'll navigate to the location of that saved design and import it. And press enter. And this is now ready to convert to embroidery. So you can see how color styles can give you give you the opportunity to play with the colors of your vector images. And I'm ready for questions, Julie.
Thank you, Debbie. We're now going to answer questions submitted during the presentation. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the questions pane in the control panel. Our first question is, are the BERNINA colors and Isochord colors the same?
No. Now you can match the Isochord colors to the BERNINA colors, and they'll pick the closest color match. But there are different color chips that are listed with the BERNINA, and the BERNINA colors will only have 56 colors, and there's many, many more colors of Isochord thread.
Okay. And we have a question from Alberta. Does the pick tool automatically change the underlay stitches when you change the stitches?
Yes, yes, it will.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't change travel stitches. It doesn't change travel stitches, but it will change the underlay. The underlay is always going to be the same color as your cover.
Okay, great. Can you make a thread chart your default permanently?
Yes, you can. And you would do that by changing your normal template.
Okay. Let's see if any other questions came in here. And that looks like it was the last question. Well, thank you, Debbie. And thank you, everyone, for attending today's webinar. If you have other questions or we were not able to answer a question today, please email me or Debbie. Tomorrow, you will receive a follow-up email from GoToWebinar with a recording of the webinar. On behalf of BERNINA, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Julie.